think I was appointed. So,
We're custom
Well.
live streaming. Going to mute everybody.
Okay.
Ray.
By the way, Chief, I've got something that I
Unmute yourself, Jim.
Jim, you muted yourself and then you unmuted yourself. And then you muted yourself. So you're unmuted now. So I don't
He's
know.
unmuted.
am I muted or not?
No, you're good now. So what did you say?
Chief, this is an elected position. It's an appointed position.
Stop
Yeah.
in front of you. Brown's making dinner and you've just been snacking and snacking.
Go ahead and mute.
And Pat, I am unmuted, right? No?
Yes, you are.
Yeah, okay.
Hi there. Welcome to New Tracks Modeling. New Tracks is an exciting new digital opportunity to obtain mentoring to help you improve your modeling. You will meet talented modelers and manufacturers from all over the world who share their model building skills and artistic advice. Improve your modeling and increase the confidence in your modeling efforts. Share your building efforts with fellow modelers and have some fun doing it. The shows are live on Zoom and YouTube, so be sure to join in and ask your questions. Now here is New Tracks founder and your host, Jim Kello, MMR.
Well, welcome. Thanks so much for joining us this evening. We really do appreciate it. Hope you come back often. And please tell your friends about it so that they can join in too. Before we start the show, I want to introduce Father Ron Walters with the show's prayer. Father Walters, welcome.
O God, as we create in miniature the world around us, may we marvel at the beauty and genius which created the world and instilled in us a portion of your great knowledge and wisdom. Give success to the work of our hands, O God. Amen.
Father, thank you so very much for all your help and for everything that you do for our show. We really appreciate it. Now I want to go to Brennan's Model Railroading, who is the show sponsor. Dennis Brennan is the owner of this company.
For over 25 years, Brennan's Model Railroading has been offering unique products for the O-scale market. Our flagship product, Brennan's Better Ballast, was an instant hit and continues to be the industry leader. Its prototypical size and natural color blend of real crushed granite make it the choice for discerning modelers. Since then, we've developed a complementary line of natural ground cover materials. Additionally, we offer craftsman kits that anyone can build with complete photographically illustrated instructions that assume you've never done this before. The Sonky Wanky Coffee Company is the latest and the fourth kit to be added to our ongoing and highly popular limited edition Ellison Tribute series. These kits take Ellison's scratch-built iconic structures to a new level with Dennis' spin. The idea being that if Frank were alive today, this is how we would build these models using modern methods and materials. Use the QR code to visit our website.
And Dennis, I really do appreciate you sponsoring the show. Thank you so very much for your contribution. Well, now I want to talk about three things about the show. I'll try to keep this very short. We have a website. The webmaster is Jim Allen, does a fantastic job trying to keep it up to date with all the information that we send him from time to time. But particularly, I want to talk about three things on our website. As you know, we have a new newsletter. The March edition is just out. It came out, I believe, on the 1st of March. It is 25 pages, and it's got an awful lot of great information in it from a lot of great locations. It's not something that you'll see all the time on New Track. It tells you about some of the things that we've got coming up, and it tells you about some of the things that we think are important for you to find out about. So I hope you enjoy it. I hope you want to contribute to it. If you have a convention, for example, coming up, love to hear about it. We'll put it in the newsletter. If you've got something special you're doing at your club or division or region, love to hear about it. We'll be glad to put it in the newsletter. If you have something great that you're doing modeling wise on your own personal railroad, tell us about it. You've got the opportunity on our monthly show to show it on Chris Course's New Tracks or My Tracks segment, but you can also tell us about what you're doing in the newsletter. Love to hear from you. Love to fill it out. Martin Brechbiel at NMRA is doing a great job. He's got all the experience in the world. He's been editor, I think, of everything in the world, particularly if it pertains to O scale in the past. But this is a newsletter for every scale, and we've got something in there, I think, about every scale. So I hope you enjoy it. Hope you'll contribute to it. Hope you'll tell us what you like and what you don't like about it. But you can get your copy if you subscribe to our website. Our website is newtracksmodeling.com. newtracksmodeling.com. We also have a new Facebook group. The reason that we started the new Facebook group was for everybody to be able to continue a conversation if they want to after the show, or to start a new conversation about whatever they want to talk about. And we thought that this would give people a way of talking about things that we just don't get a chance to or don't have time to on the regular show. Hope you enjoy it. Hope you'll contribute to it. Hope you'll respond to some of the comments in it. The other thing I want to talk about is our scholarship program. Last month, totally, from the Zephy accounts, we raised $160. Frankly, I was hoping that we could raise much more than that. I sincerely hope that if you have not contributed, that you'll consider contributing. I think there's no question in my mind that this is a worthwhile project that we all ought to get behind if we want the hobby to continue, and we want to try to help the young model railroaders be able to get an education and participate in the future. I can't think of a better way to do it. So please help us. Please support the scholarship. We've got nothing to offer you except the help that you provide. If you've got any questions, again, it's on our website. We've got special pages for it. You can download the application. You can easily make contributions, and it's all on our website. So I hope that you'll go to our website, and I hope that you'll consider contributing to the scholarship. I hope you'll consider recommending young people to apply for the scholarship. If they're eligible, then we want their application in. Nothing would make me happier than to have 1,000 people apply for our scholarships, even though this year we're only able to offer 3 $2,000 scholarships. We hope in the future that that's going to change and that we're going to be able to offer many more. Well, now we're starting something that I think is important, and that's to support the conventions and the major meetings that are going on around the country. And tonight I want to share with you about the Midwest Regions Convention that's going to be held in Indiana, in South Bend, and it's going to be on the 2nd to the 4th of May. And we have a short video that we'd like to play for you that was sent to me by Daniel Brewer. And we really do appreciate their interest in wanting to get the message out about their convention. And if there are other regions, if there are other divisions that are holding meetings or holding conventions, and you would like us to be able to disseminate information for you, just let me know. My email is jimkello@newtracksmodeling.com. So Phil, if we could show the video that we've got from the Midwest region.
Welcome to Around the Bend, a model railroading experience that you won't soon forget. The NMRA Midwest Region 2024 convention is hosted by the Michiana Division and sponsored by Visit South Bend, Mishawaka. Open to NMRA members and the public, the venue along the St. Joseph River offers scenic views and a central location in downtown South Bend, Indiana. Michiana is an area rich in railroad history. Over 20 railroads have operated here over time. Round the Bend offers 30 rail-related and 5 steel mill-related clinics, 11 layout tours, 6 operating sessions and 3 prototype tours. We also have a display and workshop room for attendees to showcase their work and to learn new skills. Many non-rail activities are showcasing the region's wide-ranging attractions. Convenient hotels like Doubletree and Courtyard are offering bargain accommodations. Around the Bend is being held at the Century Center, the area's premier convention venue. Century Center is located at 120 Dr. MLK Jr. Boulevard in South Bend, Indiana. The setting is along the St. Joseph River with attached waterfall and island for outdoor enjoyment. Parking is only $5 per day and nearby city parking garages offer free parking on the weekends. Over 10 hotels and many restaurants are located within a few minutes walk or drive from Century Center. The schedule for the convention begins on Thursday, May 2nd with setup and early check-in from 1 o'clock to 6 p.m. The evening offers a layout tour and operating session. Friday, May 3rd is a full day of activities beginning at 8 a.m. Rail clinics and steel mill clinics are on site in the morning and afternoon. A Norfolk Southern Yard tour leaves Century Center by bus for a 2-hour event, and a South Shore Shops tour originates at the South Bend Airport for a train ride to Michigan City and back. Train fares are paid at the rail depots. Layout tours and operating sessions are also scheduled for the afternoon and evening to round out the day. The Saturday, May 4th activities begin at 8 a.m. with 15 rail clinics throughout the day and a West Michigan Railroad tour by bus. Layout tours and operating sessions are scheduled for the afternoon and evening to complete the convention experience. Round the Bend clinics are arriving on 3 tracks. The introductory track takes place in the New York Central Room and features content aimed at new modelers or those looking to gain new skills. The Michiana Railroads track in the South Shore Room features detailed information about area railroads old and new for those looking to enhance their knowledge and skills. The Steel Mill track in the U.S. Steel Room will feature steel mill-related content. The New Jersey, Indiana, and Illinois Room will showcase portable layouts from around the area. There will be an N-scale and Z-scale layout along with 4 HO-scale layouts available for running trains. One of them is a challenging switching puzzle. 11 Round the Bend layout tours are sure to provide every modeler with lots of new ideas. Jerry's Pennsylvania Horseshoe Curve is a very large, Pennsylvania railroad in HO scale that is beautifully done. It's about 90% scenic and models the transition era, featuring a long 4-track mainline run and limited operation. Highlights are Horseshoe Curve and a large, detailed steel mill. Henry Arndt's beautifully scenic, freelanced HO-scale layout features the Union Pacific Railroad in the Blue Mountains and Sherman Hill and includes Union Pacific diesel locomotives, a turbine, and some New York Central steam as well. Dan's Michiana Southern is an under-construction HO layout depicting the Norfolk Southern Railroad between Elkhart and Burns Harbor, Indiana in the summer of 2009. The railroad features NCE, DCC control via wireless and Wi-Fi throttles. Dan is adding layout command control and touch devices to control turnouts during his build as well. Greg's Uncle Heavy's Ore Lines is another under construction HO scale layout modeling CNW in northeastern Wisconsin, circa 1980, and designed for operation. John Nye's very large, freelanced HO scale layout features tall mountains, harbors, lots of running, and nicely detailed scenes. An operating scheme is being developed. Rich Trowbridge's Trenton and Western is a freelance under construction O-scale layout inspired by the Grand Trunk Western in South Bend, Indiana. Tom Zurich's very large freelanced and professionally developed HO layout is loosely based on the Santa Fe Transcon from Chicago to Los Angeles. The front part of the layout, 30 feet by 60 feet, is essentially complete and signaled. The rear part of the same size is under construction and an operation scheme is being developed. Bob Olson's freelanced O-scale trolley layout uses working overhead wire and takes you back to large cities in the 20s era. He scratch-built this interesting layout including the buildings, interurban and trolley cars using ordinary available materials. The layout provides a unique window into the development of model railroading over the past 70-plus years. The Duneland Model Railroad Club of Michigan City, Indiana features a freelanced HO scale layout. They encourage interested model railroaders to stop by on Tuesday evenings between 7 and 9 p.m. Look them up on Facebook to learn more. The Elkhart Model Railroad Club was chartered on April 11, 1950 and features freelanced N and HO scale layouts. The club is comprised of model railroad enthusiasts who meet every Friday evening in Elkhart, Indiana. The club is open from 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. To find out more, go to www.enmrc.com. The Cass County Rail Club features a freelanced HO scale layout and with a detailed harbor and station scene from St. Joseph, Michigan. They welcome interested model railroaders most Monday nights at 7 p.m. to their Dowagiac, Michigan clubhouse. The Round the Bend Convention offers rail tours to the Norfolk Southern Elkhart Yard, the West Michigan Railroad, and the South Shore shops. Norfolk Southern's Robert Young Yard is a very busy place. With over 74 trains and movement of approximately 3,200 cars daily, it is one of the few large hump yards still operating in the eastern United States. Our tour of the Elkhart Yard lasts 2 hours and is limited to 15 people. The West Michigan Railroad is an approximately 5-mile standard gauge branch line of the former Père Marquette Railway operating east from Hartford, Michigan, serving the hazardous materials, biodiesel, and agriculture industries. Our 2-hour tour will view the operation and will be limited to 15 people. The South Shore Line is a commuter rail line operated by the Northern Indiana Commuter Transportation District between Millennium Station in downtown Chicago and the South Bend International Airport in South Bend, Indiana. More than 1 million passengers ride commuter trains from South Bend to Chicago annually from any of 19 stops along the way, and trains run every day of the week. The South Shore Maintenance Facility in Michigan City houses both their end-of-life and new shops. Our tour will leave from the South Shore Station at the South Bend Airport and travel to Michigan City for a tour of their facility before returning to South Bend on a later train. The Round the Bend Convention offers operating sessions on 5 of the area's well-known model railroads in both N and HO scale. Alan Black's EL Territory is a freelance HO scale layout based on the Erie-Lackawanna between Gary, Indiana and Marion, Ohio. It features several towns served by mainline trains and lots of local switching. Bob Blake's Proto freelanced HO scale Blackhawk lines is jointly owned by the Illinois Central and Chicago and Northwestern Railroads. It operates across northern Illinois and Iowa from Chicago to the Missouri River cities of Omaha, Sioux City and Sioux Falls. It's based on the former Illinois Central Iowa Division in the early 90s. John Hansky's freelanced HO scale Burlington Southern runs from Dunsmuir, California to Portland, Oregon, and Spokane, Washington. The BS is co-owned by the Burlington Northern and the Southern Pacific Railroads. Chuck Hart's Pacific Central and Eastern is a freelanced N-scale prototype Class 1 railroad with a division point located in the western mountains of Utah in the late 60s to early 70s. The PCE interchanges with the Duck Lake and Bear Canyon Railway shortline, whose primary business is mining. Brian Preston's Tacoma Bay is a freelance N-scale layout modeling the BNSF and Union Pacific around Tacoma, Washington, circa 1998. The layout features several switching zones around Tacoma and through traffic between Portland and Seattle. Our display and workshops room is where modelers can showcase their modeling accomplishments and increase their knowledge and skills. Talented modelers Rod Thompson and Ron Christensen, MMR, will be on hand along with other skilled workshop volunteers. Our non-rail offerings provide an opportunity for attendees and their guests to experience all that Michiana has to offer. South Bend's First Fridays provide the downtown area with live music and food offerings from 5 to 9 p.m. Tour the University of Notre Dame campus with its art museum, basilica, and the grotto. Start at the Visitor Center for a 30-minute video all about ND. The Studebaker National Museum, Potawatomi Zoo, the Fernwood Botanical Gardens, and South Bend Chocolate Factory tours are visitor favorites. Amish country, including Napanee, Middlebury, and Shipshewana, are close by as well. The Project Linus charity will be making blankets in the Century Center. Sewers, bring your sewing machines. Early registration for Round the Bend is one way to save and beat the rush. We offer single-day and full fares. Those who sign up as a convention volunteer for 2 hours or more receive a 20% discount, paid at the registration table when checking in. We've arranged for blocks of rooms at the Doubletree and Courtyard hotels offered at special rates. The room blocks are only open for a short time, so book your rooms early using the preferred link on our website. You can't get any closer to Round the Bend than across the street. There you have it. Round the Bend is a real bargain in model railroading for a whole weekend of fun, friends, and learning. Register for Round the Bend today to get your model railroad hobby on track.
Well, we really appreciate Daniel and his group wanting to participate on our show. Sounds like they're going to have a great convention. And if you've got any questions, you know how to reach them, and encourage you to consider going if you're anywhere close to the South Bend area. Next, I want to talk about something that I only found out about today. So you'll have to pardon me if I have to read some of this, because I tried to call the professor at the school that's sponsoring this and left him a message, but he didn't get back to me yet. This program is called Tracks to the Future. It's being run by Michigan Tech University. It is it's part of their rail transportation program. It involves 2 days for each student virtually at their home, and 1 day of travel to the university or school that's listed on this flyer that is participating, and then 2 days there on campus learning about railroading. Actual railroading and what's involved in it, and why railroading is so important both to our economy and also to the environment. The 15th of March was the cutoff date, the deadline for applying to participate. The only cost to the students that want to participate, that includes attending the universities, the 2 days at home, and so forth, is the travel cost. And there's a program based on need to cover even the travel cost. But the cost at the schools, so forth, all of that is paid for through a grant that the school got from the Federal Railroad Administration. And it's part of what that organization calls their workforce development program. So they're looking to the future. They're looking for people that want to become a part of the railroad industry in the future. And this is a program that is something that I've never heard of before, that evidently has been started by this school and the other participating schools that are shown on this flyer that we just had up. The person in charge of it is David Nelson. He's a professional engineer. He's the coordinator of their rail transportation program at Memphis Technical Institute. or Memphis Technical University. And there's a telephone number that you can reach him at. And there's an email on the flyer that you can reach him at with any questions. I've gone to their application process. It looks very simple to me. And it's something that is open to any high school student, either from the 9th grade to the 12th grade this year, 23 or 24, I mean, either in the 9th grade, 10th, 11th, or 12th. So it's something, if you have a child in that age or a grandchild, or know of somebody that might be interested, I think it sounds like an excellent program and something that I personally have never heard of before. And that's why we wanted to mention it and bring it to your attention. With that said, I want to introduce Chris Course to talk about the March 20th My Bill program that's coming up. Chris, welcome.
Yeah, thanks, Jim. We'll get right on to it. The My Build, if I hang on. Okay. Oops, that's the wrong one. That's for April. All right, the next My Build is March 20th. As Jim said, it is a free-for-all. So whatever you've got, whatever you're working on, please send us photos of that, and we would be glad to share them and celebrating your victories. And that being said, also, if you have some things that some lessons you learned and would like to share, that would be great also. And since I already kind of spoiled it a little bit, we'll talk about the April challenge, which will be spring. Show us your spring scenery, flora, vegetation, trees, something wild, your flower boxes, your flowers, vines, backdrops, planting crops, the world awakening from winter, greenhouses, those sorts of things. Your wild stuff. Please send us those photos, and that show will be April 17th. You can email those photos for either episode to me at railrunner130@hotmail.com. And please have them to me by a couple days prior so I can take the time and put them in order. Also, if you are not planning on being there, please give a brief description. That way I can put those in my notes and hopefully present them on your behalf a little bit better that way. So, and also along with the April Spring Challenge, Greg Cassidy, who you will recall won the challenge last month, has decided that he is going to contribute a kit for the person that we vote that sticks to the spring theme the best. Whatever you can do that really screams the spring theme, we'll put it to a vote, and that person will get the kit. I believe it is an HO scale best kit of the Texas Truckers Association. Correct me if I'm wrong there, Greg. But anyway, that's what we have to share. So I will give it back to you, Jim.
Got it. Thank you so much, Chris, for doing this. We appreciate it. Well, now let's start the show for the night. And the first segment that we have is O-Scale Modeling, hosted by David Schultz and sponsored by O-Scale Central Organization. So if we could run the video for O-Scale Central, please.
S-scale or S-gauge is modeling.
No, that's the wrong one. This should be O-Scale Central.
I'm David Vaughn of O-Scale Central. O-Scale 2-rail, models built to 1:48 scale and running on 2-rail track, is the best kept secret in model railroading. We're pleased to team with Jim Kello to introduce O-Scale 2-rail to New Tracks viewers. O-Scale 2-rail is for modelers. At twice the scale and 8 times the mass of HO, O-Scale's heft and ease of modeling create an outstanding model railroading experience. O-Scale 2-rail modeling is as varied as railroading itself. Modern era, transition or old time, standard gauge or narrow. A wide variety of models is available at affordable prices. There is a supportive community and lots of shows, clubs, and events. You can explore O-Scale 2-Rail by going to our website, oscalecentral.com. You will find information about the scale and how to get started, as well as a free searchable scale-wide product and service guide and listings of coming O-Scale events. You will also find information about how to join O-Scale Central. We promote O-Scale 2-Rail and support modelers in the scale. When your eyes are going bifocular, when you need fresh challenges, keep O-Scale 2-Rail in mind. Check us out, oscalecentral.com. Thanks.
Well, now I want to introduce Dave Schultz, who is the host for this segment. Dave, welcome.
All right, there we should be online.
There you are.
Well, after a month hiatus, I was down in Arizona and we couldn't get the videos to run. Hopefully tonight they'll run. Now I guess we're ready to do part 2 of what I started on O-Scale on a Budget. A little bit of history of the guy that we featured last time. Bill is a real good friend of mine. He taught me a lot about scratch building. He's such an interesting character to talk to. He was born in 1944, I believe it is. And of course, grew up in the middle of passenger train heaven, as I would consider it. But he always talked about his grandmother. He lived in Fargo, North Dakota, and his grandmother lived on a farm out in Horace, North Dakota. Well, it was a short motor car trip, about 6-7 miles out there. And of course, he talks about how the engineer of the train knew where Bill's grandmother lived. So instead of leaving him at the depot, he'd run out in the country and stop at a gravel road and let him off there. And then, of course, that evening when the train returned, he would meet him back at that same gravel road and hop on and ride home. And one of his more fascinating stories was about he could take a letter, make it out to his grandmother, and drop it in the RPO section of the motor car. And within 10 minutes, the letter was out at Horace where it got dropped off. His grandmother would write a response, put it back on the train that evening, and he'd have a response from his grandmother that evening. So less than 15 hours to write a letter, send it, and get a response back. I thought that was kind of fascinating to talk about. I wished I'd lived in that era, but you know. Anyway, I met Bill in 1979 at a toy show in Fargo, North Dakota, and he was displaying some of the equipment that he had taken Lionel trains that he had bought cheap. They were broken, whatever the case may be. And he had converted them to O-Scale. And I'd never seen anything quite like it. I was in Lionel myself back then. And I would look at these models and okay, they kind of look like Lionel, but they're changed. Well, you get to talking to Bill, and of course he would, if the engine was too narrow, he'd split it down the middle and add some material to the center of it to widen them out. The windows on Lionel engines were always narrow, so he'd take a file and file those out. And he did all of this stuff on an incredible budget. And so I befriended Bill, and I asked him, I said, what got you started in O-Scale? And he said it was an article in, I believe he said January 1959, Model Railroader. A guy had built a O-Scale mogul, and Bill had, he was a young man at the time, but he was kind of amazed at 1/4 inch because all the Lionel stuff was a little bit undersized. So he said he started experimenting because the plans were there. So he would build a model to the plans, and of course it ends up being a little larger, a little wider, and Bill once again would buy models that he'd found at flea markets and stuff, and he would modify them and build them up into O-Scale, and that was kind of the beginning. And then he said, back in those days in the early 60s, Kusan was a big thing, and they were kind of a cheap competitor to Marx, who was a cheap competitor of Lionel. But you could buy an entire train set for $15. Locomotive, cars, caboose, the whole bit. Well, Bill would take those items and start scratch building them into O-Scale models and never have much invested in these things. I have a couple of pictures that I will share with you here, which kind of show some of the stuff Bill had taught me over the years. All right, let's start with picture number 1. This is kind of an interesting item that Bill showed me one time. This is part of a Bic lighter. And he discovered that little part when he was tearing lighters apart, and he's always tearing things apart to see what might be usable in there. Well, he discovered this is a great looking bottom valve on a tank car. And I couldn't argue with him. He's got, he puts a couple of them on each tank car, and it's rather amazing to look at. And of course, they're free because you can find used Bic lighters in garbage cans everywhere, and Bill tears apart. There's also a couple of handy little springs in there that you can use. This next item was kind of interesting. This is the protective cover to a Bic shaver. Just a item you discard into the garbage after that. He takes them, cuts them in half, and they become the conduit to the water tank on passenger cars. And it just, and he'll build a water tank out of styrene and fashion it. And then he takes this part, cuts in half, and trims it up a little bit, mounts it on the bottom of the passenger car, and it makes a perfect trough for the water intake on the tanks. So once again, an item you throw away. This is one of his Lionel engines that he literally flat kitted this. He bought this thing. The steps had been broken off the engine, so I think he paid $5 for the cab. And he cut it all apart and started gluing it back together to O-scale dimensions. And I don't think he's got $10 in this entire item when it was all said and done. I bought it from him. I've got the drive for it now, and it's one of those items I've got to get working on. But once again, he's got hardly anything into this. And these, some of the O-scalers out there might recognize the sides of this. These are those ICC individual pieces that you can buy. And Bill has bought those and cut them apart, sanded them, glued them all back together. You can see that even his roof, he had spare pieces left over a clear story roof, and he glues those together. So, once again, maybe has $20 in his car on just stuff that he finds at flea markets and at O-scale flea markets and such. But real nice. It's going to be an NP prototype when it's all said and done. But once again, I doubt that he's got even $40 tied up in this thing. Although these ICC parts are now getting a little more expensive. This is something I built using all the stuff that I've learned from Bill over the years. About the only thing that I bought here is the roof and the floor and the trucks. The rest of it is all styrene that I've cut apart, glued together, cut out the windows. I found some green tint that I put on the back of the microscope slides for the windows. I've been modifying the doors a little bit so you can see some of the touch-ups I've got to do on this, but this car is almost entirely scratch built. And then this one here is another one. Once again, the few detail parts, the floor and the roof. I built the sides, I built the ends, I put the interior in this car. And I'm guessing I've probably got maybe $100 to $120 in this car when it's all said and done. And then here are a couple that I'm building right now. I love doing this stuff. You can buy a couple sheets of styrene, a little bit of super glue, and you just start cutting them apart. And always fun to have an item that other people are just amazed that you've constructed. And also, it's kind of nice. You might have a one of a kind, so you never know. The previous car, the Mount Hood, is one that I'm not sure if anybody's ever manufactured that in brass, but anyway, I've got one. So anyway, that's kind of a rundown of some of the stuff that Bill has shown me over the years and some of the stuff I've done. I've got about a 5-minute video here showing some of Bill's locomotives and motor cars that he has built. In this video, there's one of a Northern Pacific RDC B40, I think he numbered it. That is built from a Lionel, a couple of car bodies. If you ever seen the Lionel RDC, they're about 34 feet long. They're just ridiculously short. Well, Bill chopped up about 2 or 3 of these that he found at shows with broken parts on them and such. Didn't pay much for them. And he chopped that thing up and glued it back together and made a full-length RDC car out of it. So anyway, Pat, if we can run that video, let's show it. It's about a 5-minute long.
Can you get this, Bill?
Be normal if it wouldn't work.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my goodness.
Oh, can't get it to run now?
No.
Oh, wonderful.
Okay, well, we got to do something about getting these videos straightened out, but I'll leave that up to you
Oh, here it
guys.
comes.
Oh, here we
Kind of
go.
a,
Okay.
last-minute postscript on Lionel conversions. Here's a couple of Lionel Bud cars. They started out as Lionel powered Bud cars, and I converted them. This is an NP prototype. NP bought it in I believe 1956. It has a power truck of Japanese KTM origin, and all the detail underneath is all scratch built. It has a operating roof flasher, complete interior, and there again, it just not a lot of money, but several thousand hours of my life tied up. I even put operating doors on it. On a later version, this is a model of a specific car that the Minneapolis and St. Louis Railroad bought. It was basically an off-the-shelf Bud RDC4 baggage RPO combo, but they ordered it custom built with a small passenger section. So this would qualify as a passenger train to satisfy ICC requirements, so they could discontinue some other full-size passenger trains. It seats 17 passengers. The cars are only on the railroad for a couple of years, and then they were traded to the C&O Railroad for some hopper cars. But this is a Lionel conversion that was made from two postal cars from the MPC Lionel era. The power truck is an Athearn Elco PA HO power truck. I just lengthened the axles and put the scale wheels on there, and kit bashed some side frames off of the old All Nation RDC kit, which came out in 1959. And the side frames on this car are the same way, made from the same prototype. But everything, all the dimensions are correct. And this is kind of a representation of a project in process, as I still have to add some details and window glazing and paint, of course, and decals. Unfortunately, the decals have to be custom made because it's kind of it was a two-of-a-kind car on the railroad, and nobody made decals for it. But today, with the printing processes available through computers, it's not a problem to print decals. As examples, these decals were done by your host and his son. Those are decals that they made on the computer.
So what's that? What's the origin of that locomotive?
This is I believe a K-line. It was a 3-rail engine that I converted with chassis system sprung trucks and can motor, all nation drive, and a lot of scratch built stuff on there. And this is an Atlas. I believe an Atlas. It was a SD45 shell and SD45 size frame. But this railroad used it. They only had a 12-cylinder engine in it, and it was 2,300 horsepower. So this is a railroad that operated out of Minneapolis, and they didn't run fast trains. They just ran lots of freight trains. And this model has an operating flasher beacon and ground lights. And head ground lights. Yeah, there you can see them. Let's turn this light up so you can see the back. This also has some electronic features. Ground lights, flasher, and look at this end here, there's an operating fan, which is basically a gimmick. It's not, I turned the fan up? No, I turned the wrong one on. There. When the fan is running, it creates electronic interference for the flasher. So the fan is mostly for, I guess, dramatic nitpicker effect.
Well, thank you, Bill, for showing us around and showing us O scale on a budget. Appreciate it.
Well, happy to do it. And I've got lots more stuff, but we just don't have time for it.
Yeah.
Maybe some other broadcasts or take another format. But you're welcome anytime. I'm happy to share it. And I got a lot of positive response from the one we did. Was it last?
It was a couple of years ago now.
Yeah.
So, alrighty. Thanks so much, Bill.
Cheaper stuff.
We'll see about making another one of these shows soon.
And I finished some more models. You guys are welcome back.
All right.
Maybe I might even have some scenery to do.
One can always hope.
You can always hope.
Thanks, Bill.
You're welcome.
So there you see it. Like I say, he doesn't have a lot of money tied up in this, and it's not that Bill is particularly broke. He's not. He's just got into the habit of scratch building, and he's won that Bud car that you saw that at Northern Pacific on. He took first place at a Minneapolis show up against some nice models, and he got first place with that thing. So that's his pride and joy. And I've been jealous of that car ever since, because trying to buy one of those in O scale gets a little pricey. Maybe I'll have to knuckle down and buy some Lionel RDC cars and cut them apart myself, but we'll see how it goes here. So anyway, that's my segment on O scaling on a budget. I'm working on some other programs for next month and the following months. We'll probably touch on maybe some 3D printing and maybe track building. We'll see how things go here, but anyway, next week is the big O scale meet in Chicago. I plan on being there, God willing, and the creek don't rise. And I'm bringing some models to enter in the contest, and I hope I see you guys there. It'd be fun to meet in person. I met Clark Kooning in Arizona. That was entertaining. He's as much of a character in real life as he is on Zoom meetings. So anyway, that's my show for tonight. I thank you very much. And Jim, we'll talk to you next month.
David, thank you so very much. And I hope you'll have your guest back, because I tell you, his modeling is just fantastic. I could listen to him for quite a while.
Yeah, he's quite a character, and he has got models. Oh my gosh. So
well, listen, good luck at the O scale meet in Chicago, and best of luck with that. And,
yeah, I'll be manning the O scale central desk for a little bit. So like I say, if anybody on the show here is in the Chicago area, stop in and say hi.
Absolutely. And try to get some donations for our scholarship.
I'll do what I can.
Thanks, Dave.
Thanks.
Well, now I want to turn to our next segment, which is O scale or O gauge high rail modeling. Dennis Brennan is the host for this. And our sponsor is Milhouse River Studio.
Milhouse River Studio builds model train working accessories that are made to last generations. Milhouse River products are built out of aluminum and have scale brass details that even the most demanding scale modeler will appreciate. Since our industry entry in 2009 with the introduction of our flagship turntable, Milhouse River has continued to add new, innovative products, like our scale transfer table, rotary coal dumper, flood coaling tower and, most recently, a working conveyor that transports coal from the dumper to the loader. All of Milhouse River Studio's stunningly realistic products are currently available in O scale. We are adding new scales on some products, including the upcoming release of an HO scale turntable featuring our aluminum construction and stunning brass details that is big enough to handle a big boy locomotive. When it comes to your layout, don't settle for less, get Milhouse River Studio.
Well, thank you so much, Al. I really appreciate your sponsorship. And let's turn to Dennis, who is the host for this segment. Dennis, welcome. You're muted again, Dennis. You're still muted, Dennis.
I think he's turned his sound down too low now. Dennis, you're still too low. Turn your sound up. You were doing so well before.
He was blasting us out of here before.
Bring it up a little more, Dennis.
Can't hear you, Dennis. Can't hear you.
You're coming up, but it's got to be louder.
Let
Little
me-
more.
let me-
A little more, a little more. Bring it up, Dennis.
Pat, I'm going to let you and Dennis work on this a little bit. I'm going to go to the next segment and then I'll come back to this, okay?
You go ahead.
All right, so now I'd like to turn to Ipswich M Hobbies, owned by Jack Dussel. Jack, I hope I got your last name reasonably correct this time. I haven't, I know, for probably 4 years, but I keep trying. And this is an announcement by Jack of what his company, Ipswich Hobbies, is all about. The section house that he's going to be building for us on the build along, and just in general, who he is and what this is all about. So Jack, welcome.
Thank you very much, Jim. And I've just pushed my share screen button, and now I need to well, there it is. It came up. Good. I guess, Pat, you did that?
No, we got it anyway. Don't
I
worry
did
about
it. Just go ahead, Jack.
All righty,
Play it.
here I am. Okay, good enough. Jim asked me several months ago to participate with the build along, and I was happy to do that. I referred Jim to my website, ipswichhobbies.com, and suggested several options. Jim reviewed the website and decided that a section house would be a good kit for us to work on, because that was available in 3 different scales: O, HO, and N. A little bit of background on Ipswich Hobbies. I'm basically a retired modeler who enjoys kit building. And I'm from North Carolina, grew up in Ipswich, Massachusetts, following the Boston and Maine Railroad. And I go back to New England for 1 or 2 weeks every summer, and half of my time is spent with family. The rest of my time is spent on what I call industrial archaeology. In other words, I go up and down tracks looking for structures. If I see a railroad avenue or depot street, that's where I take the left-hand turn. And I went into Rockport, Massachusetts for several years in a row, photographing this deteriorating freight house, an old Boston and Maine freight house. And the tracks, you'll see the photograph on the slide. It's in the top right-hand side. That's probably 3-4 years old, that picture, and the building is probably in worse shape today. The trackage in front of it is where they park MBTA commuter trains, a little bit to the right of that view. And the bottom of the photograph is the production model of that particular kit in HO. And my objective wasn't really to compete with the big boys in plastic or in wood craftsman kit building. My objective was really just to build some structures that I had interest in that hadn't been produced commercially by anybody else. And coincidentally, this is about 2018 timeframe. Coincidentally, a friend of mine got a laser kit, and he started doing some personal as well as commercial laser cutting. So I teamed up with him, and I did all the field measurements and detailed photographs, and we decided to come out with this first production kit. So kit number 1, which merged, which later became kit number 16, was the Rockport Freight House. And if we could advance to the next slide. Then I went into the what I call the Ipswich Line Side series. Early kits included the REA baggage shed, which you see in the top right. You see the model in the maroon and cream B&M color scheme, and the gray building on the right, which is down to the floor, absent the foundation, is behind a private home in Ipswich. So at some point, that was relocated when the B&M didn't need it anymore and hauled about almost a mile away and it parked behind a house. And the owner was very pleased I had an interest. He showed me around, let me take a look at the inside and measure the building, take a few photographs, and that became one of my kits. In the middle of the right or lower right, you'll see a crossing shanty. I stumbled across the prototype of that behind an antique store in Rowley, Massachusetts a few years ago, and thought that would make a fantastic kit. As I went inside the building, I saw in somebody's handwriting, it said Minnow Street, Ipswich, Mass. Well, lo and behold, Ipswich had 5 of those shanties strung along the rail lines on the streets, mostly in the downtown area of Ipswich. And just about 3 years or so ago, that was relocated from the Rowley antique shop and moved over to the Historical Museum in Ipswich. So it has a good permanent home, and it's been restored. It looks very nice, and my kit is my best seller, that little crossing shanty. And the smoke jacks are from B&M Plans, and those are all 3D printed. On the bottom left, I was able to capture the section house in its boarded up, almost collapsing state. And I think that was the last photograph of it before it was totally razed. And a friend of mine, James von Bokelin out of New Hampshire, had scratch built that in styrene and had the measurements for me. So that worked out pretty well. So using my photographs and the measurements I was able to get, I came out with the section house kit. And that's a subject that we'll be talking about a bit more later in HONN scales. Next slide, please. Here we go. Some of the present kits that we have available are the Union Freight House. That's a white building at the very top. Today, if you went to the Wakefield Township in the middle of New Hampshire, you would see that same structure, absent the dock. It's been renovated. There's a model train club that operates inside. And that was actually the subject of a New Tracks modeling segment maybe 2-3 years ago. So that we've already made that world famous. In my early production and sales of kits, they were all pretty much Boston and Maine themed kits, although some of them were generic, the crossing shanties, section house, freight house, they're all pretty generic. Change a paint scheme and you can put them just about anywhere. But I wanted to get into something that was more universally marketable. And since I live in North Carolina, I started developing some kits that represented the Southern Railroad or predecessors to the Southern. And the first one that you see with the semaphore, that's the Golston Combination Depot, which was relocated to the New Hope Valley Railroad in Barnesville, North Carolina. Fortunately, only about 10 miles north of where I live. And that is presently being renovated. So I came out with that kit in NHO as well as N scales. It's a very highly detailed kit, in particular the interior of that passenger waiting area. And that's pretty much a standard Southern Railroad construction theme and paint scheme even. What I have coming up later this year, and first off the docket, will be what not shown here, but an O-scale version of that REA baggage shed. So many O-scalers seem to be making presentations. I thought I'd mention that. But the Sanford Union Depot, that's a restored depot in downtown Sanford, where I presently live. And as you can see, I'm finishing up the detail on the roof. Been laying a lot of shingles lately. But that prototype should be finished, within a month or so, and within a couple of months that will be available in HO scale. That would be my first brick laser cut structure. going right to the bottom, Liberty Depot. I'm working on that model, that test build, to try to get all those parts to fit on the, especially around the that bump out on that roof. That's a pretty complicated design on that one. That middle photograph just above the Liberty Depot, Liberty, by the way, is in Liberty, North Carolina. The commissary building, that's back to my Boston, Maine roots. The commissary will also be a brick building, and that serviced the the dining cars, the pre-World War II, primarily passenger heavyweight cars. What's unique to me about that particular kit is that it will be the first kit that I will have marketed that I didn't actually photograph and measure. I only have 2 pictures of that building. Both, I swear, 10 years apart. The photographer stood in the exact same spot because both photographs have the exact same angle, just a little bit of wear and tear and, signage change and barrels here and there on the freight dock. So that's an interesting, challenging kit, but it'll be coming out probably within 3 or 4 months. Okay, next slide, please. These are the packaging of the 3 kits that we have available. As you can see, the kit 5 is the HO, kit 6 is the N version of the section house, kit 18 is the O scale version. The way I work is that if they sell an HO, I'll come out with them an N. If they sell an N, then I'll produce them an O. So many of you know Bill Davis. He's been a guest on New Tracks quite a number of times. But Bill was kind enough to do a review of the kit, the O-scale version, obviously, in the O-scale Trains magazine back in November, December 2021, issue number 118. So if you're a subscriber, you can see a review of that O-scale kit, pretty much applicable to the other scales as well. And Bill did a very nice job with it. He tricked out the inside a little bit with studying the walls. Now, I typically recommend that any kit have an open door so you can detail the interior a little bit. All my kits come with scribed floors to them. So they call for lighting or just, as I said, an open door. Okay, and all my kits come with instructions, color photographs, and graphics to help you along with the builds. Okay, next slide, please. And you can see the schedule. The kit is, we're going to do 15-minute segments, April 10, 17, 24th, and May 1st. So we have a schedule of 4 different builds, 15-minute segments each. The ordering period for ordering the kits at a 20% discount code, it begins today and ends April 15th. This is the first time that I have discounted any of my Craftsman kits. So Jim's a good salesman. So here we are, Jim, with a 20% discount. Shipping $8.95. If you're local to anywhere where I'm going to be in North Carolina or Georgia coming up at train shows, you can save $8.95 in shipping and get in touch with me in advance, and we'll set a kit aside for you. And this coming weekend, I'll be in Cartersville, Georgia at the train show. And at the end of the month, the 23rd and 24th of March, I think those are the dates, I'll be at the Greensboro, North Carolina train show. And one other comment I'll make on the section house, I modeled it both with the windows, kind of a new shape, like the bottom photograph, or boarded up like the top photograph. I give you both options with the kit. So board it up or have it in better shape, and it's looking good. But again, this is although it's a B&M plan, Boston, Maine plan, it's a generic enough structure. Call it a tool shed, call it a section house. But at least in the transition era and before, you'd find one of these about every 5 miles of track, with either a hand cart or some sort of speeder servicing and inspecting the rails. And If they got any questions, let me know. Oh, let me point out that there's 3 different codes, by the way. New track, all caps, with either an N, an HO, or the O at the end of it. So it's new track, no S at the end of it. It's new track, not new tracks. New track N, new track HO, new track O. And happy to say we already have 3 participants. So we're looking forward to working with those 3 and hopefully some more.
I hope you have a lot more, Jack. You really, I can't thank you enough for doing this, and I wish you the best at your train shows coming up. Thanks again for everything that you're doing for the show. I appreciate it.
My pleasure, Jim. Thank you.
Well, let me go back to Dennis Brennan and see if we can hear him at this point. Mr. Brennan.
Did you hear me?
I can hear you, sir.
Okay. Are we level-wise? We're okay?
I can hear you.
All right.
As long as we can hear you, that's the main thing.
Okay. All right. All right. So tonight, I'm going to talk about a Plasticville switch tower. Don't overlook Plasticville just because it's, something from your youth. Plasticville makes some pretty credible models. Not all of them, but a few of them are really nice. And the switch tower is one that I think is a little gem, and I think maybe often overlooked by some people. So here we go. Okay, this is my version of the switch tower. I originally wrote an article on classic toy trains years ago. One of the first kit bashes I ever did. And it's actually not a kit bash, it's a kit enhancement. Some of the changes that I did, the stairway, I added a stringer to the stairway. I added these supports, and I added these diagonal braces. I added these little concrete pedestals to support the wooden 4x4s, and we'll talk about how we did all that. So the first thing I did was I plugged up, there's a little hole. They always have a little hole in these Plasticville buildings. And I think that's probably for lighting, maybe. I have no idea. Anyway, I plugged it up with a piece of evergreen styrene. I think it was 060 by, I don't know, what was it? 060 by 250. I added a piece in the back, and then I plugged the hole with another piece in front, and I left it a little bit long, stuck it in there, glued it, and then I just sawed it off. And then I sanded the whole thing, even though the pieces fit exactly and plugged the hole. If you sand it a little bit, I didn't need to use any squadron putty or anything else. It worked just fine. When I added this piece under the deck, because it didn't have any support. And you can see over here, you can see the stringer, okay? That stringer is not right. I mean, that's just the steps. You need a stringer for that. So we fixed that one too. Let's see if I can get there. Okay. All right, here we go. All right, so in order to add the stringer, I had to figure out what the angle was, and I just used graph paper. And I laid this thing out on graph paper, drew lines, and then I just laid the piece of the stringer down, which was, again, this was a piece of styrene, flat styrene that was, I think it was a 1x12 or a 1x6 that I used for that one. And then, see, that's what I did. I just laid it in there, And with the lines drawn, it was easy to cut the angles, and then I just glued it onto the side. Pretty simple. And that's what it looks like when it was finished. And then I added these pieces. Again, these were 4x4s. Okay, evergreen styrene 4x4. And I added, I used the same piece down here so that they would be the same, on the same plane when I went to glue them. This is just a support. And you can see the original. This is what it all looked like. Then I added, I scraped the platform, the wooden platform with a razor saw, and I sprayed it gray primer. I used a razor saw on it, and then I went over it with Minwax stain, American walnut, to get that look. And then I scraped it again a little bit just to make it look a little bit more weathered. I did the same thing with the stairway. And we'll go back here now. I should talk about, let's see if I can get back here. Here we go. I colored this with 2 shades of green. One was Pullman green, and the other was Depot Olive, I believe. And I sprayed the light color. I sprayed the whole thing the light color first, and then I brush painted the bark trim. And the other thing about this building is that there's no glazing in any of the Plasticville structures. So I used a piece of clear styrene. But the details on this are really nice. I mean, you've got a nice 5-panel doors. And you've got clapboard siding and a lot of vertical and horizontal trim. And that's very typical of like an late 1800s switch tower. And I weathered the stack on top a little bit. I also added a light. You can't see it, but there's a little light over the doorway, and it lights. It's actually it was back before LEDs were actually usable. So, oh yeah, I can see it now. It's just behind the guy's head. It's right there behind his head. Anyway, I think that's about it. You can see that that building looks as good as anything else. So I think that'll do it.
Well, Dennis, I can't thank you enough for doing this, because I agree with you. I think that, for the cost that you got in it and everything, that would go on just about any layout that I've ever seen. So thank you so much for doing this.
Hey, you're welcome. If anybody has any, needs any specifics, just email me. I have a list of parts and everything else that I used in that. So, all right. Thanks, guys. And we'll see you next time.
Yes, sir. And until then, you be safe traveling, and good luck building that layout in Florida.
I will. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Well, now I want to turn to Jim Taverna. Jim is going to do something that I think is important, and that's take off some old decals and replace them. Jim, welcome. Thank you for doing this.
Well, thank you, Jim. And let me just get the presentation up.
Before you do this, let me ask you one. Are you finished this evening, or do you need another time next week to finish this?
No, this is about a 15 to 18-minute presentation and should wrap it up.
Gotcha. Thank you, Jim.
Okay. All right, now back to share screen. Okay, I guess we're up.
Yep.
So the title of the presentation is Removing Decals, but with the subtitle of Trying to Preserve the Paint Job. So I figured I'd take an overview of what we're trying to do here, and that starts us with a question about why am I doing it? And so here we have two diesels, two F7s from the same company, importer. The one on the left is an earlier version, a really nice running model. And the one on the right is a later version that's about 3 times as expensive as the one on the left. But you can see the improvements that have been made in the lettering between the original model and then the newer version. And the model on the left was painted and lettered using a very old Champ set. I don't know why the manufacturer ever used that. And so it really is, as you can see, well oversized, and it really looks quite garish on the side of the engine. So our objective would be to take this all off and to maintain the paint job, so to give us an easier chore to then re-letter it. So to give you an overview, the B unit in the back looked the same as the A unit in the foreground, but that I've already stripped the lettering off, and I haven't done any improvement or repair to the factory paint. And now we're going to start doing the A unit. So my main tools for the project are some sanding boards that you get at a woman's beauty aid store. I was out visiting with Lee Turner out in Detroit, and he took me into this, I think it was called Sally's or something like that, which I had never visited before. And so I was a rookie, and they gave me then a gift as I joined their frequent flyer program. And so I picked up a very nice purse. And then when I came home from that business trip, I presented it to my wife. And so not only did I get some manicure boards, I was also a hero for about 2 or 3 days. So that was quite a benefit. But those are manicure boards that women use to do their nails, or file boards. And the pink one on the right has a 600 grit and a 500 grit on the board. And the one on the left is a little coarser in the 400 grit range. You'll also see that the one on the right has been sort of cut off. And what I do is I use a heavy scissor and I cut the ends of the boards to match the work that I want to do to make them more usable than just dealing with the rounded corners. So now I've taken the body shell off the drive and laid it out on the workbench, which of course, as you can see, is in my usual organized look to it, and got started on working on the body and removing the lettering. So one of the things I noticed as I was getting ready to start, there's an awful lot of rivets around that lettering. And so I'm going to have to do something to protect the rivets, because the files will, the emery boards will take the rivets off along with the lettering if you're not careful, because they're very fine and they're only in a soft brass. And the lettering really does look pretty garish when you look at it in that kind of a close-up. And so when I start, the first thing I have to do is I put a couple of drops of water. In this case, it's Decal water, which is distilled. And I lay that on the body because I want to make a slurry with the emery board, the paint and lettering I'm removing, and it makes it almost like you're honing or taking off things using the material itself as well as the emery board, and that protects the paint too and minimizes the scratching. So here's the blue emery board, which was a little coarser. I've only taken a few strokes now with the water there, and you can see that the stripe is already gone, and half the number in the fork and the large number in the front of the engine is gone. But the problem is that it also has a clear backing. One of the differences between using the rub-ons like we talked about last week and now the decals on this, the backer is a real pain in the neck to get off because it's underneath the protective finish, and then it is adhered and sort of blended into the paint from using Solvaset or whatever the manufacturer used to set those Champ decals. And so you can very lightly make out the line of the backer right below the numbers, and that's what I have to be sure I have off. Otherwise, when I go to put the new lettering on, you're going to see that underneath the paint. So here again, you could just make out that line. But here I've taken a few more strokes, and you can see that's the honing effect, if you would. I've got material from the lettering, the water, and so forth on the board, and that lubricates the work as I'm trying to take off the material. So a few more strokes, and we're moving right along. And now we're going on to the next phase. And if you look to the right, you can see that all the lettering is gone. There's a very faint outline that I will go back and address where the outline of the numbers were, and then also the stripe. Now in this area here, we're going to address that a little later because it's very hard to use those emery boards as you get close to the ladders and stuff like that. Here I've covered the rivets with masking tape so that as I file this, the masking tape will take the brunt of the blow and protect the rivets. Again, I put the water on, and now I work panel by panel. So I go from here to here, and I go in there with my emery board to take that off. And so you can see here, I've cut the emery board square so that it fits in there, and one side here is for getting closer, even in the closer areas where there's less space. And I've done now the 3 panels here and the panel here. I've also taken off the lettering down here that was for the unit number and so forth that they have on the back of the unit. And you can see I've taken some paint off of the vertical batten strips, but I've been using the tape on the horizontal big rivets, and so they've been protected. Now I have to get this off, and again I have problems with the vertical items on here that are protecting these decals. So we're going to address them with a rotary tool. The heavy gun, I call it. It's a flexible disc. It's from a jewelry company, and so it's made to do very fine work. And it's a flexible tip of 3 layers on that. It's a product made by 3M, and it has diamond dust in the ends of those fingers. So it's extremely efficient in taking things off, which means you have to be a little careful as you use it. But now you can see that I've taken off the balance of the stripe and so forth right around the handrails. I got to do it on the doors and in those last couple of spots right in here. And also what I do is I want to go in and I want to balance the finish. So I use that at very, very lightly over the entire panel. And then I go in with that 600 grit, and then I smooth everything with that as well. So finished on one side, flip it over, water's out there again. So, and this is all have to come off. So we proceed and do that. So here we have the engine finished. Total time elapsed is probably about half an hour in doing the whole thing. And so I have these blushes or blends where I've taken some of the paint off the raised surfaces, which is the vertical batten strips, and that's why I have to repaint the body only in the areas I worked. So we'll have to go in and mask. So here we are looking at it, and you can see there's some the areas where the paint has been removed, but the rest of it, it's clean, and the finish is pretty consistent all the way around to here. And so I can go on now and get ready to put some fresh paint to get rid of all the fine micro scratches that I've made. Here's the B unit, and it's not quite finished. I still have to do the doors and these areas with that motor tool. Unfortunately, Dremel is not making that motor tool anymore, but it is a really handy tool. And then I've upgraded the battery using a Chinese high efficiency battery. That tool is extremely handy in a lot of ways. But anyway, so this is almost done. So I'm getting ready for masking. So here's the B unit. I've taken off the last of those decals, and now I've masked it. So I've covered the grills and I've covered the windows. So I take the masking from up here at the edge of the roof down to just above the batten strip here. And this has been sprayed Brunswick green. And this is the whole door had to be sprayed because I had to take the stripe off the middle of the door, and it's a single sheet of metal. So there's no way that I could disguise the joint. So I had to redo the door. And now this is the A unit after it's had his treatment, and you can see it was masked right here and then right along there. And so everything down here is fresh paint on top of the buffed surface. And then, as we did in our session last week, these are rub-on letters with the Pennsylvania. It's a longer name than on the tender we did, but it's the same basic process. And then this and this are Champ decals that match the color and are the right size fonts. So we've got the engine getting close. This is the B unit up here, and it's been done. And so now we have the whole thing back together, and you can see after I spray it with the dull coat brings all of the paint together in the same finish. So you can't see any kind of line over here where I protected the number boards and so forth, but I had to take off that bullet that was oversized on the previous set and all through here. So this is a finished engine that looks it looks in a unicolor, and it's all blended together using the scale coat paint. I've also upgraded the details because now I've added all the little things like water, fuel. I've put higher detail on the fuel tank. I've added a builder plate, and then this is a Pennsy markings for the engine house that the engine is maintained in. And here's the B unit, and this is a side shot, so you can see you can't tell that this was not painted and this was painted, and the thing all blends together. And so final product, here it is on the layout. And so for me, it was worth it. And so it's a little bit of effort, and sometimes you feel like your heart's in your mouth, but it really goes well. So thank you for your time, and if anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to ask.
Jim, I think that's just gorgeous modeling. I can't thank you enough for showing us how to do this and encourage us to try it, because that really did come out just beautifully.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you. Yeah, it's I'm finding you can do more with paint and decals than you really think you can in terms of changing models or bringing models back from the dead.
Yeah. Well, you've certainly shown me a lot. Like I said and told you at the first, I've never been successful with rub-ons, but you convinced me I've got to try again.
Yeah, especially try your first one. Make sure it's all a flat surface.
Thanks so much, Jim.
You're welcome.
Well, now I want to turn to Tom Farrell. You all know Tom. He's been here many, many times. Got a beautiful layout. He's finished the one scene he's been working on for a while. He sent some final photos of it. I think it's just beautiful, except for the dam, but we won't talk about that. We'll deal with that later. But anyway, now he's going to start something else, and we'll see what he's got in mind. So Tom, welcome.
Thank you again for having me. And I have started something else, but that's next week. This is this is part 4 of 4, just photos of the finished shanty town. So if you guys will indulge me one last time with this, I think you're going to like this evening. This thing really photographed well. I do want to say that I'm featured on the cover of the ON30 annual that's coming out some point in the spring. And that's quite an honor for me. And I'm the feature article. So if you have any interest in ON30, get your copy reserved. They're presently at a discount at the moment. I do want to thank Martin Brechbiel for putting me in contact with Chris Lane, the editor of the ON30 annual, and for Martin for proofing my article. So as if he doesn't have enough to do, he's helping me too. A little statistics on Shantytown. I started this way back in June of 2023. There's approximately, I'm guessing over 30 new track videos on this entire project. They're all on YouTube. There are 12 unique, one-of-a-kind scratch-built structures in Shantytown. There's one kit bash structure from my friend Mark Shire. It's the Carsonville station, which you'll see. There's one guest structure, a water tower from the late Alan Carroll. I bought it off his estate. There are 3 Frenchman River model work boats. These are the resin boats from James and Anna Cleveland. We did a build along on a couple of them. There's one scratch built crane skiff that was based on a Foss model that I did for Sean Williams. And I couldn't believe it, but there's 120 inches, 10 feet of scratch built fencing on Shantytown alone. That's an enormous amount of fencing. And there's 51 figures and 3 dogs. No cats, because I'm allergic to cats. All artista figures. So, if you go to the extreme end of Shantytown, there's a standard gauge line that's basically a dummy line, but it serves as a transfer from the narrow gauge, rustic buff and old Gothic to the Pennsylvania Railroad onto Harrisburg through this tunnel, in theory. And this is a close-up of one of the many billboards that I've made. I go online and I search for 1920 or 1930 advertisements and simply pull them into PowerPoint, print them out, and Elmer glue them onto these billboards that I scratch build. This is the Foggy Mountain Models kit bash. This is pretty much as the kit was delivered on the right, and this is the kit bash version on the left. I added quite a bit to this model. I like making them unique. Many of you may recall the right next to the Foggy Mountain Carsonville station, its maintenance facility for me, is the John Allen engine house, which took me well over a month to make. It's a really nice looking model. It's not quite John Allen, but I gave it my best. Here's some more of those billboards that I construct. I never did a how-to on these, but they're relatively simple to build. And that's a kit bash style locomotive too. a Broadway Limited. This is the depot for Shantytown. It's scratch built. It was featured in one of the videos, and behind it are design preservation model DPM. They were featured also. The one on the right, the Milford Hotel, was featured in a New Tracks video as well. There's another close-up of the Shantytown depot. I added this billboard to the roof of this. It made a big difference in the way the model scaled. I really like how it looks now. It didn't look too bad before, but that billboard on top of it really made it even better. Most of what you're going to see then tonight are scratch builds. So there's a part of the overall look. This is Alan Carroll's water tank. And this is this scratch build, and there's the John Allen, and there's some more of that fencing. I had a lot of these signage. It really sets the theme of the layout, gives it a nice cohesive look. This is a photograph that I snuck my iPhone right behind the depot, between the wall, or the building there, the fence, and the depot, and took this rather dramatic shot. How serious I am. I put this asylum for the criminally insane here, and I put Hannibal Lecter in there. I put the Joker. I put The Shining, Jack Torrance, and I put Jason from Friday the 13th. I do take this hobby very seriously. Here is the Hilltop facility, the 3 rental units that I joke about. This one's condemned. These 2 are very run down. This is one of my favorite structures now, certainly one of the best ones I've produced. This another shot there that shows you the different, how you light a photograph. Mr. Brennan can definitely attest to lighting affects the color. I use 2 different lights. I got 2 different looks. That's the way it is, right? They're both nice photographs, though. Here's an up close, and I do want to say that anybody that rents one of those units, I will get you a ticket on this fine ocean liner, the Titanic. Our previous effort, the Lusitania, actually sunk, but I have the utmost confidence in the next voyage of the Titanic that you'll have a wonderful trip. This is some more billboards here. These are just randomly put on there and layered. I got this from the Franklin in Manchester. He does a lot of this up there in Massachusetts, a renowned modeler. This is to the left of the depot, the Shantytown depot, just a neat little scene. And this is on the other side of that fence is this road to Shantytown. So this takes you down, it's in between the rivers to your left. The first bait house is here. There's this road, these buildings, track, and then these building flats. This is more of that fencing. Oop, wrong way. So this is part of the Shantytown hobos, homeless people. It's detailed with, these are actual cut up branches from the front of my yard. This is just scrap wood. These are resin castings here that I just simply painted, just a ladder, a barrel with cotton in it that I colored as fire. And then all kinds of scrap material. These are those, we did a whole session on how I made these shanties from pure scrap, including the outhouse. you know, I had all these wooden fences everywhere, and I wanted to have some sort of separation between these shanties and the road and the fishing bait houses. So I made this stone wall. This is made up of that old-fashioned floor tile. This is broken up. I don't know what the material is, but it looks like stone if you break it up with pliers, just regular pliers. And I just chipped it off, and made this stone wall. I painted it, then I stained it, and then I put Woodland Scenics covering material all over it. There's a close-up. I went online, I looked for O-scale clothing, and I printed it out, cut it out with an X-Acto knife, and made a clothesline here. There's that flooring tile. There's a close-up of one of the shanties. There's that whaleback tender locomotive car. This is really nice. This thing photographs real well. There's a close-up of the three amigos there. Looks like they're having a good time, huh? And just think, if you rent one of those rentals, you can come down and hang around with these guys. This is the first bait shop, bait and tackle. This is probably one of my favorite, probably my favorite of the group. The barnacles on here are nothing more than ballast painted gray. There's the next one, Pat and Phyllis's bait shop. There's Skippers. The figures really make these scenes come alive. You know, the more, when I added the figures to the middle of this section, I mean, it just made the shanty town just leap to life. This is the professors take fishing tackle on the other side of the shore. And everywhere there's hobos, bums, and drunks, an old car. This gives you an idea of the scope of this and why it took 8 months. There was a lot of work to these. Each one of these is scratch built. This boat is scratch built. This one's one of the Frenchman River models kits. This is the Frenchman River model seafood shack, Jim Seafood Shack, as a matter of fact. It's a close-up of the two boats. The covered bridge is from my previous layout. That one took some time, but just had to be placed here. Another shot of the bay, if you will. I came up with this brainstorm to put these pilings in here. I thought with all these boats and these tight quarters, the rustic buff and old Gothic railroad wouldn't want anybody running a boat into their covered bridge. So I put this protection in here. So I just drilled holes through the cast plastic here and inserted weathered dowel rods. And then I came up with the idea that put some advertisements there. Just layering one detail after another, you get this look. This is the other boat. This is the other Frenchman River lobster boat. This was a build along. So this boat is glued in place, and these two boats can be interchanged. That has a nice look about it. There's a close-up of my scratch-built skiff, crane skiff. There's an overview of the majority of Shantytown itself. There's that stone wall I was talking about. There's the road that leads to the depot. This is just a flat photograph that I purchased for $10 off of a photograph place. I printed it out. It's 8.5 by 11, as big as I could make it, and I glued it to a piece of foam board. This is another DPM structure. I forget what they call it, but it's a modular system they have. We all know about that and that. And that's it, guys.
That is absolutely outstanding modeling. There's no question about it. I've told you that repeatedly, and it's really, really just when you look at it and you think that it basically is a scratch-built model of all of that. That's really something.
Thank you, and I'm looking forward to further participation on your show. And I have a whole new program, whole different, something 12, 14 feet away from this, whole different area.
There's no question. We have you booked pretty solid.
Terrific.
Thank you so much, Tom.
Thank you. Yep.
Well, now I want to turn to Martin Brechbiel, MMR, for his Scratch Building Corner. Martin, welcome.
Thanks, Jim. We'll start something new tonight. If I can, oh, there it is. Yeah, something new tonight. We built two cars. Let's go back to building a structure. And here's our starting point, a pile of stuff. We've got clapboard from Northeastern and Kapler and God knows, probably some Midwest mixed in there just for fun. I don't really care where I get it from. It's I'll mix and match it however it works best for me. I'm not married to any particular source. I'm more connected to the source that actually supplies me with what I want today, as opposed to later. 3 or 4 types of windows, a couple of different types of doors, some chimneys. These are interesting ones over here in the corner. These are actually 3D printed ones. I found those on eBay. I have no idea what they're going to work out like. So I will frequently just buy stuff to try just for the fun of it, for the adventure. So it may or may not actually ever get used. It'll sit in the filing cabinet in the parts bin for years, and then it'll find a use later. So that's the first slide. Well, that doesn't seem right. Maybe it is. That's surprising. Okay, well, that's the front and the back walls. This is going to be a house of some sort. There's the front door, front 2 windows, front wall. The back wall is missing the middle section because there's going to be an addition tacked on in between those 2 sections. That's the back door. So much to my surprise. So there's, you can see I've pieced together various scraps of clapboard as well. Various different types, different vendors. You can see the different coloration. It doesn't matter once it has paint on it. It all looks the same then. 2 side walls. And I'm not sure which one is which at this point. We'll find out later when I get them assembled. And that's just some Grant Line windows I had too many of, apparently, in a bag. I don't even know what the part number is for them because they were stuck in a Ziploc bag, a handful or 2 of them. Over the years, I've managed to acquire a lot of Grant Line parts that found them at a show, train show, on a table, under the table, in a box, in a Ziploc bag for $1 or $3, and figured, well, I'll use those for something someday. And actually someday sometimes even arrives. So, but I don't really know what they are. I'd have to take them out and actually measure them very carefully and go cross-check them against Grant Line's parts and figure it out. But they serve the purpose as they are. This is our little bump out in the back of the little addition. So there's the back wall with the hole. The hole's not wide enough. We'll make it wider. There's the real back wall with another type of window in it. forgotten which one that one is. These little, like those are 3/32 square stock on the ends to put the trim on the corners and the corner posts. So it all gets glued together with those corner posts. And 2 side pieces, left and right, or right and left, depending on your peculiarities. Okay, we'll glue it all together and get it upright. You can see there's the one small part of the back wall. There's the other part of the back wall. Here's the left and right. Here's this middle section. These are actually glued at the joints at the 3/32 squared with goo and CA. But then I've added some, I forgot what size balsa. I bought a bundle of balsa wood basically by mistake, but it makes great bracing for the interior, and this gives us a nice place to lock into the roofing sections later, and also for floor supports. I just use it wherever I need something interior and it's not going to be seen later. It'll go away slowly but surely. So take the clamps off, because despite the fact, yes, you can't have too many clamps, you can have too many in a photograph. So take them back off, and you can see this comes together like this. There'll be a little piece of wood that actually fits across in here, and the roof will actually get mortised into this and lock into place. We'll get to that next week or the week after. I'm not sure which. And we'll put all the walls together. So the 3 windows actually belong on this side, and the 2 windows go on this side, the front and our back assembly. You can see there's some balsa in the corners, just interior bracing of the corners to stiffen them up, which I later came to regret doing at this point, but I never quite know exactly where the plans are going to go unless I really sit down and study it out and make sure I know what's going to go on with this building. So this building has had fits and starts and stops and lengthy stops and then restarts. So here's the back view. You can see the balsa again in the corners. It's kind of flimsy at this point, actually. It'll survive a drop on the floor. It did, so I know it will. But it needs a lot more. And so we're going to put a second story on. And this is something I'd never really done before this way. This is actually framed together. This just drops in. This is not actually attached. It's friction fitted into around the top wall. So you see this top wall here. There's there's room between the corner posts. There's actually 3 pieces of wood on these edges. There's a bit that rests right on the clapboard. There's a piece that projects up. There's a piece that projects down. What projects down actually locks it into the first floor. And this flooring is sitting on yet another little ledge that's underneath. And I think I have another photo. Yeah. So you can see the piece of flooring. So that whole ceiling and floor for the second story lifts out. And in practice, well, in theory and in practice, that lets me take off the entire second floor from the first floor. So if I really, really, really get ambitious and let my OCD get out of control, I can put an interior in the first floor. May come back and do that someday, but not today. So you can see I've added a little bit of trim here and some fancy stuff. There's some quarter round, there's some channel, some other quarter round, some other pieces of wood that wraps around 3 out of the 4 sides. The back of the house gets a plain section of wood because it's the back of the house. So the money faces out front so the neighbors can see your affluence. And then I went back and put a floor in. And doing this was where I was mentioning the regret about putting in the corner bracing early, because now you have to work your way around the corner bracing. It's not hard to do. This is actually 2 pieces. There's a joint right here. So it's 1/32 thick basswood, sheet basswood. Cut out the corners, drop it into place. There's some more also underneath this, and that this is resting on. And you fit the other piece in, snap it into place. And what actually holds this in place is a little bit of friction more than anything else. It just literally snaps into place. Although I think I came back later and put a little bit of glue on the under from the reverse side just to hold it down. And we're going to stop there. That was 12 or 13 slides. That's where I draw my line. So I don't talk all night. So any questions? Scream them out now.
Martin, can't thank you enough for another great segment on scratch building.
Yeah, we'll do this house probably most of the month.
Okay.
And then I've got at least 2 more cars lined up to build, sitting in the sidelines, waiting for their moment of glory on the glass plate.
Also, I want to thank you so much for doing our newsletter. I think the the March issue is just outstanding. And I really do appreciate all the hard work you're putting in on that, Mark.
Well, let me give a shout out to all the guys who are regular contributors and give them a heads up that I'm going to be nagging them for their updates into April. So what do you think you're going to be doing in April? Send me a sentence or 3 and a picture, guys. And I'm already working on the April issue. I probably got 18 pages of that already, because there's a lot of interesting conventions and new products from various vendors in there.
Absolutely. Martin, thank you so very much. See you later.
Yep.
And now Mr. Steve Sherrill with his fantastic segment. What do you want to talk about? He got us started last week. I didn't think we'd ever stop. So Mr. Sherrill, welcome.
Well, I'm glad to be here. Tonight we're going to talk about, what do you have on your workbench? But something a little bit different. It's also what you have under your workbench, or as I like to call it, spring cleanup. Believe me, I don't know how so much stuff just gets around on the floors, everywhere. And there comes a time when you even get sick of it yourself. I do a lot of work with the Dremel on plastic, and you know what you get with that. I also do a lot of cutting and just putting stuff together for RC, battery power. And I just got a lot of stuff around. And so the other day I said, somebody was going to come over. And so I said, well, this is it. You know, I put it off long enough, and now it's time to clean up. So I first started with my little picker and started picking stuff up off the floor so I didn't have to bend down and pick up off the rugs. And, you know, that took me a while. Filled up the trash can. I have all kinds of boxes. Had to break those down, get those out. Put all my tools away. Got everything organized again. Can't find anything now. You know, and this happens 3 or 4 times a year, or as needed, I like to say. You be absolutely surprised what you find out that you find. You know, I found a few screws that I couldn't find that fell on the floor. Just parts, things like that you know, they fall somewhere and you can't find them, and you just say, well, I'll just buy another one. But I try to organize things, and I always wonder what other people do. You know, because whenever I go over to their house, they're always, you know, real organized. And so tonight's discussion is going to be, how do you organize your work area? Now, I also I have sliders under the layout. I have shelves under my layout. I have a large layout, 24 by 32. So I can hide the stuff, but it doesn't mean it's always, nice and neat. We know how that goes, right? And so I just kind of wonder what you do when, how do you clean up your workbench? Somebody like Martin, for instance, or Tom, who are working all the time on stuff. I think Martin said he had 5 cars on the table now he's working on. You have parts laying around. Tom is scratch building. I don't know what you guys do when you're really working on stuff. And I'm always out in my room working all the time. If anybody has something they want to add to this, and because I think this is really worth a discussion of how we organize, how we keep our areas clean. Are we ready for somebody to drop in to see us and visit anytime? Or do we, kind of get embarrassed when we don't have things clean? So, Tom, you're a good one to help me on this.
Yeah,
What do you?
I have a couple rules. I never leave any supplies on the layout. Like if I'm putting ballast down, I temporarily have a ballast container. When I'm finished off, the layout's always clean. There's never anything on the layout, just as a side note. It's always, the only thing on the layout are things that should be on the layout, just as a little rule I have. And that keeps the layout, always, not that it's not built up too much, but there's a lot of bench work now. But there's a lot of flat spaces that you could just set things on. And I don't want to go down that road where all my supplies are sitting on the layout, So I have a rule. I don't put anything on the layout that's not supposed to be on the layout.
How about on your workbench, Tom?
On the workbench, I also have this other thing I do every Thursday. Every Thursday I have to put 1 hour in cleaning up the workbenches. And I don't know if I did a video on my very first video for Jim was all these custom cabinets I put underneath the layout, and the big row to my right here of workbenches. There's cabinets underneath them, so just so it doesn't get totally cluttered, every Thursday I say I have to put an hour in, not modeling, but cleaning up and readjusting everything. And it's just a little thing I do. 1 hour a week, clean, every Thursday is a day. I just clean things up. That's what I do.
I mean, obviously that makes it much easier for you to scratch build stuff, when you could find everything.
I hate looking for stuff, and that's why I have these IKEA cabinets. They're relatively inexpensive. And I have all my wooden supplies all in there, and it's all pretty well organized. And I'm like a reformed alcoholic, because the last layout I had looked like a hand grenade went off in the place. And that's when I vowed that I'd never do that again. And the layout room was a mess. The workbenches were a mess. It was in my other house. So this time, my mantra a year ago was no compromises. And that went with the storage and organization. It just makes it so much easier when you don't have to play the game. What did I do with that, that grant line window? What did I do with that? Whatever. Everything has its place. And but I wasn't always like that. That's just how I am now. So I don't know if that makes any.
Well, the type of modeling you do, the quality. I mean, I figured that she would be real organized.
I am now, but before it was chaos.
But actually being organized and not being organized doesn't really indicate the quality of the modeling that a person would do. Some people can have a mess, and they turn out really, really top-notch models.
Yeah, it's really about not having to look for everything all the time.
Yeah.
You have to waste half an hour looking for something that you have, and if everything has its place, you're finding it's in moments, not in minutes or hours,
Now that I'm starting to dabble a little bit into this G-scale thing, I'm doing a lot of bashing on that and painting, installing battery powered things like that. So now I've got stuff that's huge.
Yeah.
It's big, so it takes up a lot of the space. I hope to show in the future some of the work I've done on that, just to show how really huge this stuff is and what you can do with just a little bit of work on that and just enhance it a whole lot. Let me ask Neil Hunter from Australia. I'll always call on the Australians. Hi, Neil. How do you keep your workshop organized? What do you do? Can't hear you. Neil, can't hear you.
That's because he's in
Neil, you're muted.
Yeah. No, I don't.
I'm trying to unmute him, but he's...
my wife's always on my back saying, clean your workroom up, clean your workroom up. So there's my answer. I don't do it.
Oh, of course, you give in to that, right?
Yeah, yes.
I mean, we have a newer modeler like Doc Lovelace. Doc, what do you do to keep yourself organized?
I don't think you can see me right now, but you can hear me.
Yeah.
But we just moved. So beforehand, my model room was an absolute disaster. About 6 months into it, at first it looked pretty nice, but about 6 months into it, I just noticed stuff was everywhere. So my wife, the wonderful lady that she is, went around to different places like Michael's and Walmart and different places and found me a lot of stackable, what are these called, honey? Cabinets or shelves or something? But basically they're all stackable, and they have clear fronts. And so that way what I do is, and this is what I did for the move. And once we moved, I'm going to keep it like this forever, because I take like a dry erase marker, and on the front, I just write on whatever's in there right now. And I have some that are probably some cabinets and drawers that are probably, I would say you could hold 3 or 4 gallons of water. And then the other ones that are tiny where you would just put, N scale figures in, you could hold maybe 200, 300 N scale figures. And they're all stacked and they're all labeled. And at any time, if I need to, I can just take a little wet rag and wipe it off and relabel it. And if it's something that's going to stay for a significant period of time, I can actually take a label maker and put an actual label on that. And that only came about just because we moved. If we hadn't moved, I would have probably just had a disaster area for a while. But kind of like what Tom said, I mean, I knew where everything was. It looked like a disaster to somebody else, but when I walked in there, I could tell you where anything was. I won't do that again, though. Since it's organized now, I really like it the way it is. Everything's put up. But the most important thing is that it's put up, but everything is visual. Like I can see it. I don't have to pull out 19 boxes to get to that box that's in the bag just because I have it written down somewhere in a log where it is. I don't have to do that. It's all right here and it's visual. And I think that's really important.
Yeah. I try to put... have small parts in boxes, but you have so many things after 40 or 50 years collecting that you just can't keep track of all of it.
Well,
hey,
can you see me right now?
No, I can't see you.
Well, if there's a way to share my video, I don't know how to do it because I'm on my cell phone, but I was going to show you some of these containers that I have. Here we go. Okay, can you see me now?
No.
I can.
No,
Yeah, I see you.
There you are.
Okay. Well, like this is an example of some of so like this is one thing that she purchased where it opens up and it locks, and then each one of these is individual containers. And being as you know, this works for me because I'm an N scale. So everything that I have is absolutely tiny. Sorry, my dog's making a mess, but and here's another example, just all kinds of different trees that I have, and I have all of them labeled, but it's labeled, like I said, with a dry erase marker. So if, you know, in the future it needs to be something different, it can. So that's a really good idea too. If you work with small things, I don't know what to tell you, O scale guys, though. I don't know. I don't have enough square footage for
that. We have to work fast. We don't have much laying around.
Yeah, exactly.
But you know, I know when you start to build your N-scale layout, you'll probably have some tools on the layout when you're laying track and stuff like that. I know when I built my layout, I would just, you know, if I only did 6 feet of track a night or something, I would be having the tools and my supplies 6 feet away, and then I move it 6 more feet the next day. And it was kind of it was really something to see when I got down to the last 6 feet. I had all this stuff to get rid of. But
hey, Steve,
can
I throw one thing out that I think affects what your workbench or your whole work area might look like, and it's how many tasks you're working on, how many either kits or how many locomotives or cars or something. When I'm working on just one project, maybe one structure, it's pretty easy to keep my workbench under control. And when I finish one operation of it, I'll put away the tools I was using for that. Then when I start the next operation, get out those tools so that I don't leave a lot of stuff laying around. But if I'm doing 2 or 3 different projects at the same time and I'm moving stuff to the side to work on something else, that it gets harder because I'll leave out the tools for one thing because I'm going to be using them again, but I push them to the side with that project while I work on something else. Maybe paint's drying for one, or glue is drying, or I'm waiting for a part to come. And that can really add to how cluttered the workbench and the whole work area gets. I'll put stuff on the shelves on top of other stuff because something's coming in for it that I'm going to put on in another couple days. But in the meantime, it's in the way. So kind of how many things you're working on can influence how big a mess you have.
You know how I fix that?
How you do that?
I have 5 workbenches.
Tom, I would say with you, only 5?
I'm looking at them. There's 5 of them.
I hadn't thought
around everything.
I found one thing that helps when you're working on your layout is to have a movable cart. Put the stuff on when you're working instead of stuttering shoveling it all over the layout when you're working. It's impossible. I put it on the cart, and if I need it, I grab it, and when I'm done, I put it back on the cart. And when somebody comes over, I shove the cart underneath the layout.
Although mine's 5.5 feet tall, but I've got 2 of them actually that are on wheels.
That works good.
Yeah, I mean, it really does because it does.
Well, I try to save a lot of the stuff that I'm working on. As far as if I don't have a part, I'm waiting for a part, I have to put it somewhere else. I don't have a large workbench anymore. So, you know, like I say, I'm working on G-scale stuff now, and just the parts alone, when you break it down, they're big. You know, there's no way you can do away with all that kind of thing. I have moved my micro layouts into another part of the house. And when it gets warmer a little bit, I'll be out in the other building, a 12 by 30 building, which gives me a lot more room to work in.
But right now, it's kind of crowded on the little desk, you know. But I'll manage. I'll you know, I just want if somebody comes, I want it to look halfway decent when they come in the door, so they're not overwhelmed by the clutter.
I have here, it's Larry McDonald here. It's roll around carts and they got shelving in them. And you can take these cases out. They're clear plastic. And what's nice about them, you can take them to your workbench and they open up. Am I in camera? Or no, like that.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
I've been buying quite a few of these. They've gone up in price since I started, but that helped for the smaller parts. I'm in O scale, so I know what you mean about size of some of the stuff. But all the small parts and my tools and glues and things like that.
Where are you getting those? Where are you buying?
Michael's, and I think from some of the large places you can order online, you can get them.
Yeah.
I got mine through Michael's.
Yeah, you're right though. They are starting to get very, very expensive.
They've over doubled. Sometimes you get them on sale, and that's why I wait for sales. I have some other ones too, and they're everything I've got. I'm trying to change underneath the layout to have on rollers. Plus, I'm building little flats on rollers for any heavy stuff like my airbrush and whatnot. So if I have to go underneath the layout to do wiring, I have a DCC layout. And there's wiring, and so yeah, that does help to roll it out. But I've got way too much stuff.
I think we all do, Larry.
I could launch into I have a layout behind me here. It's ON3 and it fills a room 26 by 14. And it's just filled underneath too with stuff. And there's probably enough to build 3 other layouts, which I've dreamt of doing, but I haven't got the room.
Well, you got a lot of stuff in that room. You can't do without, right?
Yeah, and I just can't go to a show and not bring back something.
You owe it to them.
That's why you used to see me at Kimberton, and because when I switched to narrow gauge, the shops didn't. There was one shop that had it down in St. Catharines, and he finally closed. And he used to trade, and that's how I got rid of a very large HO layout and with extra stuff, of course. And but that's when I'd go down to Kimberton, and I would save up my money to that was a buying spree because the stuff was there, which I'd never see in Canada. So I knocked myself out. Yeah.
Well, listen, do us a favor. Take some pictures of it and send them to Chris Course and show us some of your layout or some of the stuff that you're working on the in the My Bill section. I'd love to see it.
Well, I'm just starting back in. I've been very busy. I'm working on two little engines here for a museum. It's HO, and it's River Rossi 440s, and the first one I built for 20 years ago, it finally wore out. So I had to buy like 3 engines to get all the parts to cobble one together again. It's almost finished.
I'd love to see it. I really would love to see that kind of model.
I don't know how to present something. Yeah, I can send stuff to Chris. I can probably send something to your newsletter. And
that would be great.
Kind of stuff I can handle, but yeah, right now I have to get up to speed on the computer. But yeah.
Well, everybody on the show has to get up to speed on the computer. You can ask anybody about my problems with the computer.
Yeah. Well, sometimes I feel like I'm back in the starting gate, and the lights just turned off. So the race is
not
over.
alone.
I totally understand.
You know, I had one more thing that I was thinking of. I'm trying to convince my wife to let me do it, but I noticed I try to think 3-dimensionally, and I look around my room and I notice how much negative space and unused space is above like the 7-foot or 8-foot area.
Yes.
Even in my office, I mean, there's just nothing up there, and we had 12-foot ceilings, and I really, really wanted to put some floating shelves or something up there, and instead of having everything under the layout, put everything up on top, because essentially that space is just never used. Right. And it's a shame that it's never used. But that's one idea I also had to kind of help, maybe stuff that you're not going to use for this particular layout or maybe next month, but like you said, I'm never going to throw it away. Maybe put it up high, you know?
So
Yeah.
Steve, just
scared of those.
a comment. I actually tore it out, but I had a layout in a bedroom a number of years ago and basically replicated the layout shape with a shelf that was about 14 inches below the ceiling, and then put a fascia on that with lighting. And it was actually hung with chains, and there was a board at the front of the fascia that actually gave it a little stiffness, and then cleats on the back. And I actually did a linoleum on it and then going down the wall, so it was coved. So what you got was a nice about 6'8", 6'9" sky that you looked into, and you looked into the layout. But then above that, you had this very large shelf area. You could put lots of stuff in it. Actually, it would fit a banker's box up there quite effectively. So that is a good idea. You can if you do that right at the beginning, when you plan out your fascia, you can take advantage of that space. And if you have a 9-foot ceiling,
as long as you're not scared to maybe climb up a ladder, a few rungs or something. I mean, that's the only downside I saw is that if you're a little bit older and you don't want to worry about climbing on a ladder, or you can't quite reach it, it would pose a problem. But if that's not an issue for you, I think it's a great use of that, what seems to always be wasted space, especially in a workspace. You know, use every square inch, every cubed inch that you have in that room, use it.
Well, I'm gonna let my wife climb those ladders.
You always put those boxes
Yeah,
up
me
high
too.
and put pieces of cotton on the bottom, look like clouds.
Well, I like that overhead. That's a good idea. I have some room. I think one part of my building had 9-foot ceilings, and I could have 8 in the back, so I could just use the 9-footers.
Yeah, you know, you put the stuff up there that you don't need tomorrow, you don't need next month, but you're not gonna throw it away, you know. And it's out of sight, out of mind, but it's safe, and you could categorize it and everything, know where everything is. I mean, that's what I really want to do for the stuff I'm not going to throw away.
Well, Doc, you got those are good ideas. You know,
Absolutely.
I liked what we shared tonight. Well, I think that's it. I think we've done it.
That's great. Before we leave you though, Skip, I got to ask you a question. It's been worrying me. What's the logo on your hat?
What, this?
Yes.
That's Dead Rail.
Dead Rail Society. Many years ago, they had, you know, when the battery power first was introduced into the smaller scales, they came up with the name Dead Rail Society out in California. It was a group that, and so I got permission to use their name. And then at Al Judy's meet, J.J. Clark and George Serra made T-shirts and hats. And so I got T-shirts and hats with all that on it. And so this hat just about had it. I had a brown hat, and one of the guys in California saw my hat, and he wanted one. And I had worn that, so I sent it to him. So I always wear it. And you know who the only people ask? Only one person out of 10 years wearing this hat has asked me, and it was a woman. I don't know what she thought. Braille, what the hell? You know? But yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah, I thought it started with Bob Gibbs.
I've never seen the logo before.
Yeah, and the shirts, I got, you know, pockets on with little skull and crossbones and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I wear them all.
That's neat. That really is.
It's kind of fun.
Yeah, I still want one, by the way.
Well, you're not Dead Rail yet.
Yeah.
We haven't got you.
No, not yet, but that's a yet. Not yet.
I haven't gotten you. It's the first train show. I'm going to go and get an N-scale engine.
And I'm gonna dead rail that thing.
Well, I can't wait to see it. I can't wait to see it. But Steve, thanks so much for the night. Great segment. Thank you.
Bye.
Well, that's pretty much our show for the night, except for the Caboose segment. So, Pat?
Welcome to Train Gamia, a groundbreaking family-friendly event where you can have fun mastering the tracks. Up to 6 players can join the action simultaneously, each aiming for a spot on the coveted high score board. Can you outsmart your friends and maybe even claim the top spot? Become a master driver and ensure that either passengers or goods arrive on time. Along the way, you must keep an eye out for signals and observe the speed limits. You get bonus points by using the horn and light at the right time. Children as young as 6 can join the excitement thanks to our Easy Drive mode.
I was really impressed with that game when I saw it. I'd never seen anything like that before. And I do think we keep talking about how do we attract young kids and young people into the hobby. To me, that's one way of doing it, because that would be a lot of fun, I think. I would enjoy doing that, even though I'm not a kid anymore. But anyway, that's our Caboose. That's our show for this evening. Thank you so much for coming. Hope you've enjoyed it. Most importantly, hope you learned something. That's what it's all about.